But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we. Is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt.
A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
That's right, Brett Walsh. You need to execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a very special episode. It's episode number 69. Yes, I am
Nice.
I am immature, but this is the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet. This is the 9x9. It is Tuesday, May 23rd. Oh, it's my brother's birthday. I should call him.
After the show.
Yeah, after the show, not live on air. But my name is Everett Delorme from Toronto. That is Rob St. Clair from Chi-Town. And ladies and gentlemen, it is done. It is over and dusted with it. The 2022-2023 professional volleyball season is over. It is done. All the trophies have been given away. Everyone has been crowned champions. We saw a fantastic end to the men's Scudetto playoffs last week, and then a fantastic, absolutely wonderful day of volleyball on Saturday for the Champions League finals. And Rob, let's just jump in right away to the Champions League finals, where we had two repeats, a three-peat and a two-peat. Zaksa taking it on the men's side, VakifBank taking it on the women's side. Before we get to the actual matches itself, I want to talk a little bit about the finals in itself, because
like the event,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think that it was a bad look for volleyball. It really was. They had the stadium lighting on, or was it the event lighting on in the stadium there in turn? But you could tell that there was empty seats. You could tell that it just really wasn't that a packed house, especially for the women's game. I think it got a little bit better for the men's game, but you could just tell that it was empty. The in-house commentator, it was just bouncing around. It wasn't, the noise wasn't getting absorbed into any bodies. And I just thought it was a bad look for volleyball a little bit, just not having many people there. I know there wasn't any Italian teams in either one's the finals, but still, we should be picking these finals for places where people actually care and want to go see, regardless of who's there.
There was also the absolutely embarrassing starting lineup gaffe in the men's match with like the graphic they showed of the starting lineups. And even our boy Louis Led, who was commentating the games, was extremely confused because the starting lineups that they displayed were not even remotely close to right for the men's final. I didn't understand that. Just like the little details of what is supposed to be the biggest match of the year for the CEV just weren't executed particularly well. And like the stat sheets have the attendance. Both the stat sheets say that there were 10,000 people there. And it's the same number. There's no way that that's even close to true for the women's game. And even if it was true for the men's game, you couldn't tell, because it was very similar to the VNL finals in Chicago that one year, where there were so few people there that they blacked out all the stands, so you couldn't see how embarrassing the attendance was. So yeah, this wasn't the best foot forward that volleyball has ever put in terms of like the production and the product, in terms of how everything was executed. But I gotta say, the matches lived up to the hype. Both of these matches were absolutely fantastic, and it was a shame that the events and the productions didn't do the matches justice.
Yeah, it was also not so great on the broadcasting side of things, I would say. Big ups for Louis Lett. I mean, I love that he was actually there in person. He wasn't just, calling it over the internet. Obviously, he's a legend. You and him are up there as my favorite commentators. But it was just him all alone. Like, we couldn't get Hein in there. We couldn't get some type of legend to sit beside him and give him some color. If you compare this to what we see in the Champions League for soccer, they have pregame shows. They have, halftime shows. Obviously, it's a little bit more difficult in volleyball. But there was just so much more fanfare, where the broadcast to me just seemed like it was another game. Right.
Yeah.
They did have a few different, more interesting camera angles. They had the one from up top, and then they had the jib from time to time. But other than that, it was just kind of a standard game. Obviously, once again, big ups for Louis for commentating, but like, let's get someone beside him. Let's do a bit of a preview show. Let's do something more, because this is the Champions League finals, and it deserves it. And finally, my one biggest qualm they had about this is that it was all behind a paywall. How do we grow the game? How do we keep how do we keep the growth going if even the even our casual fans, a casual fan is going to be like, oh, I have to pay for this. I don't want it.
Nope. Yeah.
No.
I'm out.
But as you said, Rob, 2 fantastic matches. It was just wonderful volleyball to watch. Let's start with the women's side, shall we?
Sure.
It was, man, I love this. All Turkey. VakifBank came in, and an absolute all-time performance by Paulo Egonu, 40 points on Saturday. It was mesmerizing.
Yeah, just an incredible all-around match from VakifBank. Paula Egonu and one of just the great scoring performances I have ever seen in a volleyball match at any level, period. Like, similar to the level of Kamil Semeniuk in the men's final last year, where he was just absolutely unstoppable. Egonu did a similar thing on way more volume, and everybody in the gym knew that the ball was going her way. 40 points. 37 for 57 attacking, 9 errors combined, 65% kills, and 491 efficiency, plus 2 blocks and an ace for Paula Egonu in the most important match of the year. That is why you brought her over from Italy. That is it. That is the player that you signed her to be. And in the biggest match of the year, Egonu delivered yet another championship for VakifBank, their 6th Champions League title ever. Pretty convincing 4-set win over Eczacibasi. And Egonu was so much better than her counterpart Tijana Boskovic. It was like they were playing a different sport.
Yeah, absolutely. It was night and day. And it's hard to remember, last fall when we were calling Tijana Boskovic possibly the best player in the world, because she did not look like it on Saturday afternoon. Right from the get-go, 7 blocks by VakifBank in that first set. They were all over Eczacibasi in that first set, and like throughout the game after that. VakifBank went out there prepared, and they set the tone, and then Egonu just carried them which to me, it has to be an all-time performance, right? That has
one of
to
the best I've ever seen.
It has to be one of the highest scoring performances in a Champions League finals ever, right? 40 points, men's or women's, it doesn't matter. Like, you do not see that.
That's 10 points per set. That's
10
crazy.
points per set. Absolutely. What set was it where she was absolutely unreal? Set number 2, she had 12 points. She was 10 for 14 attacking, with 2 errors all combined. So she only continued 2 balls. That is absolutely just disgusting.
Amazing.
And you know what? Big ups for VakifBank. Their season was really on the rocks until about a few weeks ago.
Well, I'd say even a few weeks ago, it became even further on the rocks when they lost in the Turkish playoffs in a golden set to Fenerbahce. Like that, really the past month for this team has been a complete roller coaster. They win the Turkish Cup, they immediately get bounced from the playoffs, and then they win their 2nd Champions League in a row. Really quite insane. Obviously, Egonu was the difference, but I want to give Gabi a shout out. I thought she was outstanding, especially in the passing category. Listen to these numbers: 77% positive reception, 71% perfect reception on 31 attempts to lead her entire team. And she was taking 50% of the court. She was squeezing Karabayama all the way to the sideline and passed 71% perfect, plus killed 50% of her balls offensively. That is the great support performance. And got 3 blocks. Like, what more of a supporting performance could you ask for? It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this to me, it just shows that, like, Egonu might be the engine behind this team, but 100% Gabi drives the bus, right? Or the other way around, whichever metaphor you want to use. This is still Gabi's team, right?
100%.
It doesn't matter that Egonu's up there putting up 40 points. Gabi still runs this team, and I mean, we saw it earlier in the year, especially in the semifinals, where Gabi just really showed out against Fenerbahce in the semifinals to be able to win that golden set and qualify for this finals. but ultimately this is still Gabi's team, and it will be next year, especially as now it looks like, Egonu will be moving onto another team, continuing her world tour of teams in volleyball. But man, this one was just, it was all VakifBank, and it was a little disappointing. Eczacibasi really came on strong in that third set, but just really couldn't put together. It was definitely a disappointing match for them.
No, it definitely was. But before we talk about Eczacibasi a little bit, I've got some stats that I want to show, just kind of team stats all the way around for the whole match. And there are a couple really eye-popping numbers here. One of them is blocking. You talked about VakifBank's 7 blocks in the first set alone, which is insane. 14 blocks total.
Overall.
Yeah, compared to Eczacibasi's 9. 6 aces to 8 service errors for VakifBank is outstanding. 1 ace to only 5 errors for Eczacibasi. And then team attack efficiency, 416 efficiency for VakifBank as a team. A lot of that is Egonu, but Gabi was really good. Karabayama was good enough, and the middles were great. 416 as a team versus 256 on Eczacibasi's side. And while the passing numbers were basically identical, that disparity in offensive efficiency on identical passing numbers tells me 2 things. Maja Ognjenovic did not set a very good game, and Tijana Boskovic was just bad. She was bad. And it's crazy to say that about her after winning, like dominating the world championship in the national team game a year ago. But 2 years in a row now in the club game, Eczacibasi has won 0 trophies. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But Boskovic, 16 points only in 4 sets compared to Egonu's 40. 15 for 46 with 13 errors. That's 0.49 efficiency. That is just not good enough for somebody who's supposed to be in that echelon of the game in a Champions League final when her team needed her. And you cannot blame it on not having outside hitter support this time, because both outside hitters, Baladin and Voronkova combined, were very good. This was one of the worst clutch games we've seen in Boskovic's career.
Yeah, she really didn't show up for this one. And I know the Discord was kind of going off between the way the difference that when she looks compared to playing for the national team versus when she's playing professionally, because it just was not a good look for Tijana Boskovic. To me, though, it was partly due to VakifBank's serve pressure.
True.
A positive passing rating. It was pretty much the same between the two teams. Perfect passer rating was a little different. 43% for VakifBank, 36% for Eczacibasi. That's a big gap for me. And then 6 aces for VakifBank compared to just only 1 for Eczacibasi. Like, there was just no pressure being put on VakifBank all day. Whereas on the other side, Egonu was dropping serves at 100 kilometers an hour. Right, like she was consistently serving over 90.
And Boskovic was float serving, absolutely, just no pressure whatsoever
from Eczacibasi. To me, it was like we're going to talk about in the men's game. Like on Saturday was teams who've been there before were the teams who knew how to deal with the moment. Right, were the teams who knew how to deal with the situation and deal with the pressure of it all, because that's exactly what VakifBank did. Right, they knew how to deal with that moment, and they knew how to prepare for that match, and you could tell that they prepared for it impeccably.
Totally. Question in the chat: how many times did Boskovic get blocked herself? 6 times in 4 sets, plus 7 unforced errors. Yeah, the efficiency was just miserable. And it's worth talking about that for Eczacibasi is the team that has been there before. And we're going to talk about this later in the show with kind of putting a bow on the entire club season and how disappointing is it to go undefeated in the regular season and then end up winning nothing, which is exactly what they did. I mean, no, you get knocked out, I think, in the round of 8 in the Turkish Cup. You lose 3-0 in the finals in the Turkish League, and you really don't put up a very good performance whatsoever in the Champions League final. That for a team that was supposed to be extremely good, that is just not a good enough season. And I think most of the blame, unfortunately, needs to be put on Ognjenovic and Boskovic. I really think it was just those 2 players.
I think a lot of the blame has to be going, and you have to look at Farbat Akbas, the coach of VakifBank, right? To me,
of Eczacibasi, you mean?
Yeah, Eczacibasi. Sorry, I apologize. Guidetti's the coach of VakifBank. It's just, we saw it earlier in the year, like especially in the playoffs, how he wouldn't be going to Elif, your second setter. Like even then, we saw him go to Elif a little bit. but not that much. It to me that there has to be some type of mismanagement there, right? Like you go undefeated all throughout the year, and then you just crumble in all big situations. Like you crumbled at the World Club Championships. You went through all of the other trophies as well. To me, that's something at the head of it, and that has to come on the coach.
I agree, and I found this graphic that you can see here. Well, Everett, you probably can't see it, but the people can see it. Just pointing the blame directly at Ferhat Akbaş, and in last 2 years with the Eczacibasi, failing to win any major tournaments when given opportunities. They lost in, I think, last year's Super Cup, last year's Cup, the semifinals of the league last year, the Club World Championship, like you mentioned, this year, the Turkish Cup this year, the Turkish League this year, the Champions League final this year, all after going 26-0 in the regular season. And I'm not including winning the CEV Cup last year because that's an inferior competition with a team of this budget. That's I think this does have to be put on the coach sooner or later. We've been talking the last couple of weeks. I think I totally agree with you. I think a setter change needed to have been made. I think Elif Şahin would have been exactly what this team needed. And there were people in the Discord at the time talking about benching Tijana Boskovic and putting in Samantha Fabris, which I understand where you're coming from there with as bad as Boskovic was, but I would not have made that move. I definitely would have made the setter switch, and he just didn't really have the courage or the willingness to commit to making that move. And I think it really could have helped. And I'm really curious to see where Eczacibasi as a program goes from here, because Akbaş, remember when all of the shuffling of national team coaches was going around, Akbaş was the hot name that the Turkish national team wanted, but he had already committed to coach Croatia. I bet everybody's really happy now with how everything turned out, getting Santarelli instead of him for the national team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a world of difference there. Obviously, Santarelli to me is still at the pinnacle of his game on that one. You know what? I would have liked to see Samantha Fabris come in, even if it was just like you're doing a double sub situation, or you bring her in for a few rotations just to give Boskovic a time to resettle. Take a breath on the bench and then get back out there. Oftentimes, and like Fabris, like I rate her, like she's a good player and she can go up and put up some numbers, maybe not at the level of a Tijana Boskovic or a Paolo Egonu, or she's not in that upper echelon, but she does give it a little bit of a different look. Like she's a righty as opposed to a lefty. I would have liked to have seen that change. Like it's the last game of the season. You're getting kicked here. Try something different, right? Like especially towards the end of that fourth set, like you could tell where it was going. I would have liked to see Fabris come in a little bit more, just to kind of put all the marbles on the table, a lot similar to the way that Canigliano brought in Alexa Gray in that last match of the women's championships last weekend. If you've got a horse on the bench, just let her run for a little bit. And I do think that Samantha Fabris is a horse, and we didn't get to see that at all.
Yeah, when your back is against the wall, you're getting smoked. You have a player on the other side putting up an all-time performance against you. Your setter's not playing well. Your workhorse opposite's not playing well. You have to change something, and Akbaş just didn't. So we'll talk about Eczacibasi's sort of disappointing season later on in the show, but I do want to talk a little more about Paula Egonu and the season that she had and the performance that she had in the final. Great point by our friend Brian Andre in the chat. Egonu, this is her third Champions League final match in a row, dropping 40. That's nuts. 41 2 years ago with Conegliano in a win, 40 last year with Conegliano in a loss, and 40 this year with VakifBank in a win. But the thing is that those previous two matches were 5-setters. This one was a 4-setter, and she still got to 40 points. And it was an up and down season for VakifBank as a team. It was a little bit of an up and down season for Paula Egonu as a player, but when the cards were on the table, when the best was required to win the biggest match of the year, she put up maybe the best performance we've seen maybe ever in a Champions League final. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I definitely think her performance this year tops those past two. And you're right, like I forgot that she dropped 40 in the past two, which is kind of crazy to think about, but she definitely did. Of course, last year was in a losing effort, but this year doing it in 4 sets and just the way that she was doing it, like it was impressive. She continues, like when the bell is rung in those clutch situations, she answers it, right? And there's so many players that we talk about who kind of shy away from those big moments. I like Jason Tatum, but man,
Ouch.
yeah,
They
ouch.
shot there.
That was a definitive shot to any Celtics fans out there. But you know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you do in the regular season. It matters what you do in those gut check times. And man, Paolo Egonu, she's clutch, right? Like you can put her up with MJ. She is so clutch, and the way that she gets herself up for these big matches, you just know that you know that if you're going up against Paolo Egonu, you have to beat her before the finals,
Right.
or
Yep.
play an absolutely perfect match. Was exactly what VakifBank did last year, where they played absolutely perfect to be able to beat Canigliano. But man, we're so lucky to be able to get to watch Egonu do what she does right now. Like she has to be starting to cement herself as one of the greatest women's volleyball players of all time.
And what is she, 23, 24 years old? Unbelievable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
40 points in 4 sets on 491 attack efficiency is an all-time performance. And I agree with you. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. They don't give out any trophies for that. This isn't hockey where they have the stupid President's Trophy that makes absolutely no sense that they give out to the best regular season team. No, screw that. Trophies, championship matches in the playoffs are how legacies are cemented. And this was just an all-timer. It really was.
I think Paolo Egonu is who Leon wishes he was.
Oh, man. Wow. I mean, I think you've forgotten that Leon won 4 Champions Leagues in a row of his own. That's entirely another conversation. But it's what Leon probably wishes he was doing right now.
Right now. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe a bit of a pop off, but I still stand by that. She has been absolutely phenomenal, and it's even more exciting in women's volleyball just because of how many other fantastic players that we have. You know, if you look at the Volojas, if you look at the Vargases, of course, Boskovic when she's on her game. I don't know if women's volleyball has ever been at a better place than right now.
It's awesome. And the parity this year was at an all-time high, and we'll kind of wrap all that up later on in the show. But one more gigantic congratulations to VakifBank, and personal congratulations to the 2 Americans, Kara Bayama and Shaka Ogbogu. More Champions League hardware coming back to the States, which is awesome. Awesome. It was awesome to see during the celebrations, all 4 Americans, Bayama, Ogbogu, Smith, and Shoji all celebrating together. That was great for an American fan like myself.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think that's a good segue, Everett, to the men's match, which happened later on Saturday. One of the great matches I have ever watched, one of the most thrilling, back and forth, nutty, crazy games of volleyball ever. And it results in an instantly legendary performance by Zaksa Kenzirjin Kojle, three-peating the Champions League, 3 championships in a row for a Polish team is absolutely unbelievable. 3-2 over Jastrzębski Węgiel, 15-12 in the 5th. There's so much to get into about this, but start at the top, Everett. What does it mean to you for this team to have won 3 Champions Leagues in a row? Put in perspective how big of a deal that actually is.
I think they're up there like that. That to me is greatness. You know, it just truly is. You know, they're up there amongst the upper echelon of the best clubs in the world for all of perpetuity, right?
Yeah,
it just puts them up there with the Modnas, with the Lubes, with the Zenit Kazans. It really cements them as an elite club, and quite possibly right now the elite club in all of volleyball. I know Zenit Kazan would have something to say about that, considering they're not in these major competitions. But just the way, and I think one thing is important to remember too, is that, you know, if you look at Italy and Russia and Poland has the least amount of foreigners, and you can't stack up your bench and have all these foreigners. So the fact that they're doing it with homegrown talent from Poland, the fact that they're building a club from the bottom up, they're not just spending a lot of money, is absolutely phenomenal. But I think not only is this massive for Zaksa, and they've cemented themselves as, right now they're the best club in the world, no doubt about it. You've won 3 straight Champions Leagues. Like that type of consistency, no one else can recreate. You can make the argument for Lube and how many Scudetto finals have they been to? Of course, Zenit Kazan as well, but we won't get into all of that issue. But to me, Zaksa is the most elite volleyball club in the world right now. But more importantly, I think that Zaksa winning the way that they have really puts the Plusliga up there at the top. And the fact that they beat Trentino, who is now the Scudetto champions, in the first round, and then you go on to beat Perugia in the second round, and who up until that point that team was unbeatable. Man, that's just crazy. And the fact that Zaksa wins this match in the way they did by getting a little bit of revenge on JSW, so that means JSW is just as quality as them. Just this shows how much growth the Plusliga has had and how it's become maybe the most elite destination for men's volleyball right now.
It's incredible. It's incredible what Zaksa did. An all-time playoff run. We've seen them in all of these Champions League runs, except for last year when I think they got to advance through a round for free because of like the last second disqualification of some of the Russian teams. But like you can't put an asterisk on this run. Zavierce in a play-in round. They had to play one more round in the playoffs than had ever even existed before because they got second in their pool to Trentino. Zavierce in the play-in round, Trentino in the quarterfinals, Perugia in the semifinals, and revenge on Yashemski. Like you said, after getting stomped in the Plusliga final, absolutely destroyed. And they took that 10-day off period. They completely reset the momentum of the series, of the matchup. And honestly, and we'll get into the match here in a second, they should have won this thing in 4. This shouldn't have even gone to the 5th set. If Bednors doesn't hit a wide open net ball out of bounds on championship point against Tony Uti alone, like this is a 3-1 and an absolute beatdown in the 3rd set at 25-14. Like it was only a team like Zaksa, only a club with the culture of Zaksa could respond to getting smoked in the Plusliga final like that. Nobody else could have responded like that. Nobody else would have had the maturity to do what they just did. And I totally agree with you. 3 Champions Leagues in a row, undisputed best club on the planet, no questions asked.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, I think we need to go back to what we talked about with the VakifBank as well, is that this is their maturity and their experience showed out.
Yep.
Right? Because we talked about it last week. It's a different scenario than playing in the Plusliga, right? That becomes very familiar. You know, you're riding the buses to and from. It's a normal bus ride, or you're playing at home. You're playing in a stadium that you more or less recognize, even when you're playing around Polish people, they're speaking their language, all of these things. Then you go to the Champions League finals, and there's all of this build up. You know, they have the player introduction, and you've got fireballs going off, and all of this production value going on for the Champions League finals. One team you could tell had been there, and the other team hadn't. And I mean, let's be honest, after that first set, JW was looking pretty good. They started off pretty well in the second set too, and then Zaksa started to come back. And that's really where their experience came through. I mean, I think David Smith with the MVP was very well deserved. Dude was a monster in all areas of the game. Remember after, because in their first championship, he got subbed out in the finals. They brought in Reño instead to play in the middle over David Smith. And we were talking about it with this back in 2021 to be like, you know what, David Smith's probably done. You know, he's probably going to be done after the Olympics. Dude has been Benjamin Button out there getting better every season. Like, it's just been phenomenal to watch.
Smith was so good this match, and it wasn't just like the normal middle blocker stuff. He was Zaksa's best server.
Yep.
I rewatched the match today and was blown away by the impact that he had on the 5th set. Gets them on a service run immediately, sets an out-of-system ball that Bednors puts away, which was high degree of difficulty and something you never expect a middle to do. He dug the next ball to keep his service rally alive, which again, you never expect a middle to do that. Also puts up 13 points on 7 for 9 attacking with no errors, 4 blocks and 2 aces, plus like all the service runs, like not just the service attempts. He served 21 total times. Like that is the impact that a middle can have on a game obviously is so limited by the nature of the position, but Smith was everywhere. Plus the championship winning kill in the 5th set. And I mentioned Bednor's hitting that ball out of bounds in overtime in the 4th that would have won it. When they got that free ball, which all started from a David Smith block that was barely covered and sent back over, Smith hand passed that ball. I was screaming at Janusz to set the man. If he sets that ball to the middle, it ends in 4. Instead, it
Game
goes to the
over.
outside. But
Absolutely.
Smith was amazing. He's 36, maybe even 37, and like you said, he's just getting better. He's getting better every year. It is just incredible, that performance, and you better believe that him having been there before made a massive difference.
I think the choice because I remember like when back in 2021 when they signed Smith to another contract, both you and I are like, what are they doing? And it just shows how aware Zaksa is of their players and how in tune they are, right? Like there's been such little turnover on this team for however many years. And time again, we're seeing the players who leave this team go do worse elsewhere. Like
Totally.
if you look at the major players who have left this team, Semeniuk, terrible season this year, right? In terms of his, I wouldn't say terrible. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration. I don't think it was that bad, but it wasn't up to his standards, right? Kokonowski for me has like absolutely fallen off the map, and he was such a central part of that Zaksa team back in 2021. Toniutti, I think he's that one guy who still had a pretty good season. Didn't have that great of a game in this one.
No, and I want to get into that.
Yeah, but ultimately, like it just, and then not only are they able to keep that team together, but when they bring someone in, they don't miss a beat, right? You filled those massive holes of all those guys that we just talked about. Sure, it took them a little bit of time to fill the hole of Semeniuk. Who did they bring again? Karyagan earlier this year, and that just did not work.
No,
but they were able
that was
to
never going to work.
They were able to go get Bednors, and Bednor was fantastic for them. Albeit not in the Bundesliga finals, definitely in the Champions League side of things. So to me, like this back to the conversation, Zaksa is the best organization right now in men's volleyball.
For sure. Yeah, it's without question. So let's take a look at some of the stats from the final match. Serving ace to error ratio was a big one for me. 9-18 for Zaksa versus 6-25 for Yashimsky. That is way too many. In particular, the 4th set alone, I think Yashimsky missed 10 serves out of bounds, which is absolutely ridiculous. 8 serves missed out of bounds in the 4th set alone. And total, they made 15 errors in the 4th set total. Now it went overtime, it went 30-28, but they gave 15 points away for free in the 4th set. 25 total service errors in the match, way too many. 17 blocks for Zaksa versus Yashimsky's 10. Big difference there. Kill percentages very similar, but attack efficiency 303 for Zaksa, 241 for Yashimsky. That comes down to the unforced errors. 8 attack errors for Zaksa, 13 for Yashimsky. Passing numbers pretty similar. Actually, Yashimsky's were a little bit better. And again, Everett, I think if you can synthesize all these numbers and point to one thing, this was a bad setting performance by Benjamin Toniutti. It was bad. And then when they brought in Amy Terraporti, it didn't get any better. What happened?
I honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I think maybe it was just an off day. I just saw in the comments somewhere that Gerbich said that the level that JSW presented in the finals was some of the best volleyball he's ever seen.
And it was.
And it totally was. It was hard to keep that level up, right? I think you saw players like Stefan Boyer, you talk about that 4th set. He was negative efficiency in that fourth set, 3 for 12 with 5 errors. Right? Whereas on the other side, you have Thomas Fornal going 9 for 12. And he got blocked once with no unforced errors. So, it's that type of realization where, if you're JSW, like you need to recognize who your hot hand is, and it didn't seem like they were.
And then they bring in the 6-2, which I just don't really get, with the exception of taking Toniutti out of the front row because he's a really small blocker. That's the only reason I kind of get that. But
Terraporti isn't that much bigger.
No, And Hadrava's terrible at everything. Like, well, why are you bringing this guy off the bench in the Champions League final? You know he's going to waffle a ball to the back wall in a key situation. You know he's going to get stuff blocked in a key situation, both of which absolutely happened late in the fourth, late in the fifth. You know he's going to just bury a serve into the middle of the net. Why are you making me watch Jan Hadrava in a Champions League final? But even like Mendes, if you're trying to win this match, that's not the move. How can you not know by now that Jan Hadrava against Zaksa in particular is not going to get the job done? It doesn't matter if Boyer is making attacking errors. That's fine. Keep Toniutti in, the significantly better setter, and set the ball to Tomas Fornal wherever he is on the court. I don't understand what was so hard about this. And after Yashimsky was so good, I agree with you and the reading Gerbich's comments about the level that Yashimsky played at in those Plusliga finals were absolutely insane, and nobody was going to beat them in that series. How do you not learn anything from that? How do you not make any adjustments to the way your offense works after you get smoked 25-14, and then even though you win the next set, it was gifted to them, but you make all those unforced errors from bad set choices and bad setting location. It was just very confusing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Mendes got outcoached in this one.
Yeah, he did.
Semenvuo ready. Was absolutely ready. And once again, we looking back at Perugia, it's really good. It's really easy to coach a team when things are going good and when things are rolling. And that's clearly, to me, what happened for JSW in the Plusliga finals. You do have to wonder, though, if this game was played one weekend before, would the results still be the same?
Maybe not. That 10 days off was a long time, and exactly like we were talking about on last week's show, you called it that with that huge reset period, Zaksa of all teams was going to take that time and use it to their advantage, and they did. They absolutely did. It completely halted the momentum of a team that was playing their best volleyball at playoff time, made them completely reset, go to a weird environment and try and do it again. And it turns out they couldn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, once again, it just goes back to the quality of what Zaksa brings, just game in and game out, year in and year out. They are the Miami Heat of men's volleyball. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
It is funny that with these 3 Champions League wins for Zaksa, it's been with 3 different coaches. Can you imagine that? Gerbich, then Kreitzu, then Semelvuo. That's wild. That's really, really Zaksa culture, if you want to take the Miami Heat thing, Heat culture that they have. They've had 100%. The consistency with Spoelstra, but that Zaksa organization. And I think it's worth asking the question. I know we were going to bring it up later in the show, but I think it's worth talking about now. Who wins? Mm-hmm. Who wins? Yeah. Zaksa or JSW? Given the last 3 weeks, JSW's completely dominant Plusliga final performance, winning their 2nd title in Poland in 3 years, but then Zaksa winning their 3rd Champions League in a row. Who wins?
It's a tough one. It really is. I think I'm going to lean towards Zaksa. Now, if this was their first, if this was they had just won the Champions League and they hadn't done it 3 in a row, I would lean towards JSW. But you can't discredit the history that Zaksa has done over the past few years. So for me, because they've completed the three-peat, and I mean, there's not many other teams in the volleyball world who have been able to do that. And funnily enough, of the 3 years they've done it, JSW has won the Plusliga twice,
That's true.
which is awesome. But to me, you won the last game of the season, right? Yep. It's almost that same question of, do you want silver or do you want bronze? Because trust me, you're going to leave a lot happier with bronze around your neck than silver because you're leaving on a loss. But yeah, ultimately, the Champions League is bigger than the Plusliga.
Yes, it is.
I would have to say you would rather be Zaksa right now.
Yeah, I would much rather be Zaksa right now. I mean, the players that were there for all 3 of those Champions League wins, so Smith, Kaczmarek, and Śliwka, I think are really the only ones. Maybe Huber was there the first one.
Maybe.
No, if anything, he was on the bench. I don't think he was because it was Smith and Kokonowski that year. Yeah, I think it's just Kaczmarek, Śliwka, and Smith. 3 Champions Leagues in a row is like instant Hall of Fame status. If that is as good as anything you can ever accomplish in your volleyball career. And then all these guys who've now won 2 in a row: Janusz, Shoji, Huber. Like it's amazing what they have accomplished. And I bet, and I know Eric Shoji is a friend of the show. I hope he's either watching or is going to watch it now back home in Hawaii. But
he did DM us on Instagram on the 9x9 account saying that he can't wait to watch this show. So big shout out to Eric Shoji. Congratulations on that dub.
Amazing, and he was so good in the final, passing nails under the biggest pressure. But I'll text him later on and ask him if who he would rather be. Like, would he trade that Champions League win for the Bundesliga finals win? And I would expect that he'd probably say he wouldn't. I personally would rather be Zaksa in this moment.
Yeah. So just going through the teams that have won 3 in a row. The first team to win 3 in a row was actually Bucharest of Romania. Did it back in the 60s. Then you had CSK Moscow, won 4 in a row in the 70s. Fast forward a little bit more to the 80s. CSK Moscow did it again 4 in a row. Ravena won 3 in a row in the early 90s. Trentino won 3 in a row from 28 to 2009 to 2011, and then of course Zenit Kazan in the 2010s. So like almost every decade there has been a three-peat of the Champions League. That's crazy.
That is crazy. Okay, well, what is it? I think you could ask, what is it about that competition that produces repeat winners? And I think it's experience. I think once you've gotten there, what you gain from getting there is so valuable towards getting there again and having success again. And it does look like Eric is in the chat. So Eric, thank you for watching and congratulations, buddy. What an amazing accomplishment. Just all-time stuff.
Hopefully that is actually Eric, unlike the Ace Vollywood that we have in the chat. That is definitely not.
We do love the YouTube chat, by the way, so keep getting active in there. Keep sending us your questions, or unless you're Ace Vollywood, then you can kindly delete your account, stop watching the show. But I mean, just what a Champions League, man. What a season. What a run for Zaksa. Like they're finishing second in their pool and having to go through that gauntlet. I want to go back and find the soundbite, because I did say, and it wasn't that I was calling that it was going to happen, but I said something like, if they do this, like if they make this run, given what their bracket path was, if they make that run, they will just be all-time legends to make that run, win 3 in a row, and here we are.
That is the fact that they were able to make the run that they did, and you beat the third place team from Poland, you beat the best team in the first place team in Italy, up to that point the number 1 team in the world, right, in Perugia, and then you beat the number 1 team in Poland. Like, they're not playing against Berlin, they're not playing against the Belgian teams, they're not playing against Friedrichshafen. They had the toughest path and still won. And that to me is just absolutely legendary. What a way to cap off a three-peat. We've just witnessed greatness, and now the big question is can they match CSK Moscow and Zenit Kazan and be the first team outside of Russia to get a 4-peat in the Champions League?
4. That 4 is unspeakable stuff, but we'll have to wait to talk about that until next year. I think that's it. Is that it for Champions League, Everett? Anything else we want to get to, or can we move on and keep working on putting a bow on this entire club season?
Yeah, let's move on. Just what a fantastic Champions League. I already can't wait for next year's.
Great stuff. Before we move on, before we do that, we want to talk about a couple things related to the show. The first is that volleyball.store. As we get into the summer and as we get starting to show our faces in some places at some events, the best thing that happens to us is when people come up and say hi and when those people are wearing our merch. So Everett, tell them about that volleyball store.
Before we tell them, Eric, if you're still watching, are you going to be in Ottawa week 1? I know you're in Hawaii, so I'm guessing probably not. But let us know if you are, because we're going to be there, and we
will. Yes, we will be in Ottawa. That is confirmed. So if it's at all possible for any of you fans or Eric as a player to get to Ottawa for VNL, you should. We'll be there.
Anyone but Ronnie, Cube, and Spike.
He's not invited.
Your invitation has been revoked. Yeah, that's enough said. But of course, if you want to look good like me, I can't see Rob because the software that we're using is an absolute potato right now. So I have no idea what he's wearing. You can head over to thatvolleyball.store and use the code SPICY for 15% off.
And there's lots of good stuff on there. You got the spicy volleyball logo that Everett's got on. You got the 9x9 squared collections. Great stuff. So use the promo code for viewers of the show. Next up in the Volleyball Source universe is everyone's favorite segment. It's time for Where's Daddy? We love hiding Dragan Stankovic in random little assets throughout the course of the show. Remember, if you find Daddy Stankovic and you comment where he is, after the stream is over, you comment the timestamp of where Daddy is at. You get a shout out on next week's show. So on last week's show, as we were talking about another, Everett and I have enjoyed clowning on Perugia the last couple weeks, and we really added, even more fun talking about Monza beating Perugia in the 5th place series. If you look very closely, just on the very right edge of that photo right there, you see Daddy Stankovic standing in the first row. It might be over the coach's head or over like someone in the crowd. I honestly can't tell, but that's where Daddy Stankovic was last week, and our friend Kiro Neri got it right away. It was actually a mad dash in the comments for who is going to post this timestamp first. So we've got quite the rivalry going on with the Where's Daddy segment, which we love to see. So he is somewhere in this show. Maybe he's already showed up. Maybe he will show up later on in the show. But if you find Daddy Stankovic, post the timestamp of where he is after the stream is over. You get a shout out.
Also, guys, this is going to be a perfect time for you guys to like this video and subscribe to Volleyball Source 2.0. If you're watching us, like you already like us, or you hate us and you want some chances to clown on us. So either way, give this video a like, give our our channel a follow, and come follow us along, because we are just about to step into the biggest time of the year, right? Rob, just remember last year around this time we were averaging around 250 viewers. Which we do in a live show now. Like we get 250 viewers who tune in live, and we're averaging almost 2,000 viewers. So it's only one up from here, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure to like this show. We've already gotten a few more since I've asked. Like and subscribe, and come along for the ride.
Yeah, we're getting into national team season very, very quickly, actually, and we'll talk about it later. A week from today, there are matches in the Women's Volleyball Nations League, which is nuts. But we've got a bunch of videos planned, not just with the 9x9, which will continue to be on Tuesdays, but we're going to do some more previews, especially if you're a North American fan. Everett and I will dig into our respective national teams going into the Nations League. So you better hop on board with Volleyball Source entering into this summer national team season. Including with that is join the Discord. The Discord, the link is in the description for the Volleyball Source Discord. It's the best online volleyball chat community in the world, and it's not even close. We've got people from all over the planet who are knowledgeable, who are connected, who make great memes. We like to make fun of Ronnie Cuban Spike, so join in there. It's a really good spot, and it will be a very central place for VNL. So you're going to want to be in that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Rob, let's move on now to the other thing to tie it all up. Trentino is officially once again a Scudetto champion.
Their 5th, Trentino's 5th Scudetto ever. Their first since 2015. They win the Scudetto final series 3-2 over Lube Civitanova, and that 5th match wasn't particularly close. 3-0 at home, 25-20, 25-20, 25-19. We were wondering on last week's show, Everett, would Trentino having lost on the road in game 4, would that pressure really get to them? I thought that it might. You said that it wouldn't. You were absolutely right. They came out and dominated in just about every category. And one of the fun things was we were in the Discord wondering how exactly the last point was going to be scored, like who Spertoli was going to go to. It turned out it was a setter dump, which was great. So funny. Just threw it straight to the floor, immediately started celebrating. So huge congratulations to Trentino. Man, of all things that we could have expected at the beginning of this season, Trentino beating Lube in the Scudetto final was not among my likely things of predictions, but congratulations to Trentino. They were the cleanest team by far and most consistent all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one thing that I think we got right, or there's one thing that I got right this year from the get-go, is that I thought Trentino was going to be in the finals. That was the one thing. Like if you look at how Zaksa started the year, right? We all thought they were going to be trash, right? They
Before the
finished,
Bednor's pickup, yeah.
Like Zaksa finished 5th in the regular season in the Plusliga, right? Just let's just remember that, how they finished even below Warszawa, but they ended up winning that playoff round. Then Resovia, right?
Yep. Yeah, you got it.
Bet beat Sovia, and then of course lost to ESW. But Zaksa was bad at the beginning of the season. Lube was bad at the beginning of the season. Perugia was perfect at the beginning of the season. The only team that truly stayed, like JSW was fantastic, although they did pick it back up at the end. They couldn't really cap it all off. But the only team that stayed true to themselves all year long had to be Trentino.
They have established an identity over the last 3 or so years since going to the last 2 Champions League finals. They have stuck with that identity, and they have reinforced, kind of, even though they keep playing and losing to Zaksa Champions League. I think those 2 clubs are pretty darn similar. I think they're run similarly. I think the way that they have established success is similar. And the theme that I love is consistency, roster consistency, in Trentino's case, coaching consistency, play style consistency. Building that program year over year to continued success has finally paid off for Trentino. They are no longer the bridesmaid. They are finally the bride. And I'm happy for them. I think they really deserve it. I love Ricardo Spertoli as a setter. I think he's so underrated, and I'm happy that he's taken this team to a title. And about this 5th match in particular, I think we were talking about in match 4 with how good Marlon Yant and Gabi Garcia were off the bench. It was very unlikely that those guys were going to be able to do that again. And sure enough, they weren't. Yant, not great. Botolo, very bad. Horrific in reception. Nikolov, okay, not great. Garcia off the bench, really bad. And Lube just didn't have it. They didn't have it. They spent all the gas they had in the tank. They got to the Scudetto final. They got to match 5, which was way more than we would have expected from them at the beginning of the year. But in the end, they ran out of gas, and this was Trentino's turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Trentino, you could tell that they just had that confidence that they just needed to kind of settle things down and go back to their game, right? And that if they got into another situation where Yant or Garcia or even Nikolov was having a fantastic game, that they would handle it in that situation. But I mean, they didn't need to. They dominated in every category, outserved them, outblocked them, out-hit them, out-passed them. It was just utter domination. Like if you look at the passing numbers, 63 positive, 25% perfect for Trentino, 34 positive, 11% perfect for Lube, 10-6 in blocking, 9-1 in service aces, and they both had 12 errors. So it was just an absolute domination there by Trentino. And I think they deserved it. To me, they had to be the second best team after Perugia on paper, and they got the job done at the end of the season.
Yep. Also, what on earth was Lube Civitanova thinking, putting Mattia Gotardo in as a front court outside hitter? That was one of the most sad and pitiful attempts at playing offense I've ever seen. That was just terrible. Truly Blengini clutching at straws. Nothing was going to work. This was Trentino's turn. Matej Kaziski at age 37 had a tremendous year. Just amazing. MVP of this match at 44% efficiency. Just no big deal. Age 37, switching positions to full-time opposite. Come on. What a legend this guy is. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that I might have seen his name on the preliminary roster for Bulgaria for Nations League this year. And boy, would that be something.
Whoa, I'm literally going to go look this up right now because that would be absolute insanity given the history that Kaziski has with the Bulgarian Federation.
I think what I saw was no Sokolov, but they might have Kaziski at least on the preliminary roster for VNL. If somebody knows that in the chat, please let us know. But that would be crazy. And Matej, across from his countryman Alex Nikolov, who would just beat in the final, that would be a heck of an outside hit duo. Or he could play on the right side in Sokolov's absence, whatever.
He could play on the right side, and given that Rado Parapunov has not really come to be the player that we thought he might be, there is some room on the right side there. But can Kaczynski pass good enough? Because we saw with Nikolov's passing, it was a bit of an issue down the stretch there for Lube. Can he handle it at the VNL level?
Great question. So we will preview all of these things in a series of videos heading into national team season about all these sorts of things. But anything else to wrap up with the Scudetto, Everett? I mean, great series, great playoffs, especially like the biggest upset of all time with Milano beating Perugia in the first round. But game 5 itself was kind of anticlimactic.
Game 5 itself was anticlimactic. There just wasn't much pushback at all. I mean, like 2019, it was almost an hour and shower, an hour and 20 minutes.
Pretty close.
I think, Lube was overextending themselves a little bit by getting to this point. The fact that they got to the fifth game in the finals, that to me is a win for Lube.
Totally agree.
When you have the roster that you have, and you've lost the key pieces from years past that you have, I think that's an absolute win for Lube. But fantastic, as you said, just a wonderful playoffs. The fact that only one series didn't go to the limit is absolutely crazy.
How good is
right?
that, man? Awesome.
I guess 2 if you count the third place series as well.
Oh yeah, that was a 3-dong for Piacenza. I forgot about that. Yeah, amazing Scudetto playoffs. I mean, nobody will ever forget Milano beating Perugia, and nobody will ever forget Trentino being the champions this year. It doesn't matter. Even if match 5 was kind of boring, Trentino will have this forever. It is their 5th title in history. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, awesome. It's just so much greatness,
Whole lot of greatness to celebrate around this time in the year, Everett. And it's time. It's time to look back on the entire year that was in international club volleyball. There were so many games, so many tournaments, so many trophies to be handed out. But I think it is kind of worth looking right now at the final trophy count of the major competitions on the men's and the women's side, and look at some trophy cases for this year. So
don't do Eczacibasi dirty like that.
Sorry, guys. So might as well start with that. On the women's side, we got Conegliano with 4 titles. They won all 3 tournaments in Italy. They won the Club World Championship. The only thing they missed out on was Champions League. That belonged to VakifBank, who won the Champions League as well as the Turkish Cup for their 2 trophies, but certainly was going to be difficult for them following up winning all 5 trophies last year. Fenerbahce with 2 trophies of their own, the Super Cup and the Sultanlar Ligi, which is very impressive. And unfortunately, a big old goose egg for Eczacibasi, kind of like we talked about earlier, despite going 26-0 in the regular season. And then on the men's side, parity everywhere. Dead split in Poland, 2 each for Zaksa and Jastrzębski, 2 for Perugia, the Super Cup and the Club World Championship. Trentino won the Scudetto, and Piacenza out of nowhere won the Italian Cup. This was, I think parity is the right word to describe this club volleyball season, right?
Yeah, and I love it. As much as I love the greatness of when a team just runs the table, and that's why I was rooting for Perugia to go all the way, I also love when you have no clue what's going on and what's going to happen. Not what's going on, because we have a decent grasp of what's going on, but what's going to happen, right? There's just so much quality up there. And I mean, hell, you could even put the CEV Cup champions with Modena winning on the men's side, and who was it? Scandici won on the women's side. Yeah.
Yep.
So absolutely love it. Conegliano, so close to having that perfect season if it wasn't for that quarterfinal matchup against Fenerbahce.
Yeah, it was the quarterfinal. Yeah, you're absolutely right. They caught Fenerbahce at a time when nobody was going to beat Fenerbahce, similar to when VakifBank and Eczacibasi both caught them in the Sultanlar Ligi playoffs. Yeah, so that last 3 weeks of the Turkish league season on the women's side was as chaotic and fun as any volleyball I've watched in a long time. Just the back and forth with they had so much catching up to do with the schedule, and VakifBank winning the cup and then getting beat in a golden set to get knocked out of the playoffs, and that final series the way it was. That was incredibly fun stuff. And then I just really like looking back on the Coppa Italia on the men's side when Piacenza won that tournament and when they beat Perugia, and that now being like so strongly in my memory as the beginning of the Perugia downfall, which we've documented well on this show. That was really crazy to look back on, huh?
Oh, baby. I mean, not counting the 5th place playoffs, because that's some Mickey Mouse shit.
Of course.
That like they won 29 straight matches up until that point, and they went 6-6 over the course of the next 2 months, month and a half.
True?
Yeah.
Oh my
goodness. They
goodness.
went 6-6 after that. So it's just a massive downfall, including losing 4 in a row to end their season, 2 to Milano, 2 to Zaksa. So that was truly the catalyst, that one lost. And man, you could just tell that. I mean, I definitely want to talk about this maybe in another forum about Perugia, because that was the biggest breakdown of all time that we've seen. But you could tell that they were just kind of floating along just based off of good individual performances, and that just broke their perfect bubble. And everything started to erode away after that. I will be interested to see Piacenza next year, because they did get third, so they do get that Champions League bid berth. They will be playing Champions League next year. They do have a fantastic roster, right?
Basically the same. They're keeping pretty much all of it, as far as I know, for next year too.
Yeah, it is basically the same. And you look like, you've got Simone, you've got Brizard. Like, that's an absolutely fantastic roster. Can they take a step up and be more consistent and be more a threat throughout the season next year? We'll have to see.
Yeah, great question. So we've got a couple fun little segments we want to do to wrap up the club season before we get out of here tonight. The first one, I'm calling it season superlatives. Everett and I have gone through and picked some of the best, worst, superlative things about this club season. And with it being with so much parity, it was honestly really hard to pick some of these things. I had to think really hard about who I was going to give some of these awards to, but let's start with our MVPs, Everett. And this was very, very difficult because of the inconsistency of who was good at what times, both in teams and individual players. But let's start on the men's side for MVP. If you had to give an MVP of all of European club volleyball this year on the men's side, who would it be?
I think it had to be Tomáš Fornal. And about a week or so ago, I wouldn't have thought that. And then you and me and Christian Smith from Electric Volleyball are having a conversation just about who to bring for the Polish team. And I started looking to it, and statistically, Fornal had the best season out of all of the top Polish outsides. And that's literally all of the top outsides in the world right now, like Leon and Semeniuk. The way that Fornal ran his team, and we saw it once again we talked about how there was no reason for JSW to win that fourth set. It was because Fornal went 9 for 12.
Absolutely.
Right? Attacking. He was the best passer on the team. He was the best attacker consistently. He was so efficient. He was playing defense. He just doesn't serve all that well. So for me, Tomáš Fornal, he may have put himself in a position where it may be impossible not to start him in the VNL this year.
I do not envy Nikola Grbic and the decisions that he's about to have to make. Oh, what a nightmare. But funny enough, I had the exact same pick. I also picked Tomáš Fornal. Also, the Plus Liga just today named him the MVP of the Plus Liga season. I think that's really well deserved. And I think what it came down to for me is consistency. A lot of other players had spells where they were amazing. Like there was the time where we talked about on the show when Bartosz Bednarz was playing like the best player in the world. Him and Thomas Jeschke both had amazing runs there, but since they came over halfway in the season from China, I didn't really consider them for a season-long award. Fornal was just amazing all season long. He was Yashimski's most important player, and he was consistent from start to finish. And I totally agree. He's my MVP on the men's side because there wasn't a singularly dominant player. I just think was the most consistent.
Yep, absolutely. I fully agree with that. That's my reasoning for me too, but he was quite dominant at times as well.
Yeah, he was. All right. How about the women's side? Who's your MVP of the season on the women's side?
Oh, this one's going to be a little bit tougher. Just because there is so much ups and downs on the women's side. But I think I'm gonna go with Irina Fedoretseva. I just think that, especially from the baseline, like if you look at some of her serving numbers in the Champions League and in Turkey, she was absolutely incredible. And to me, Fenerbahce doesn't win that championship without her. So yeah, I'm going to go Irina Fedoretseva. Although that one's a lot more difficult for me on the women's side because there's so many people you could go to.
Yeah, that's true. I think I agree with what you just said. There's no chance that Fenerbahce wins either of their two trophies without Fedoretseva, and there's also no way they beat Conegliano in that Champions League quarterfinal without her. That the level of serving that she displayed at certain times this year was the best in women's volleyball history, and I will really stand by that. But my pick is Joanna Volos.
Yeah, another good one.
Looking at the list of trophies, like we just were a second ago, Conegliano had more than anybody else. And they missed out on Champions League, but they dominated their country. They won all 3 tournaments in Italy, and they won the Club World Championship. And they had to work really hard to do those things. They dealt with some serious inconsistency from their outside hitter position, which we've talked about a lot on this show. But I really think that Joanna Wołosz is head and shoulders above every other female setter in the world right now. I think she is so special, the way that she can manage not only the setting of the offense and how technically good she is, but her presence and the way that she manages egos and appetites of different offensive players, and the way that she got Isabel Haak immediately back to being one of the best players in the world in a new system. Like, she really is so impressive, and I have so much faith in any team that she's ever on to be good because of her. So she's going to be my MVP on the women's side this year.
Yeah, to be honest, I was thinking about her, and then I saw that you picked her, and I was like, I can't pick the same one as Rob. I mean, I know there's a few that we do because they were just obvious, but she is truly so good. The other one I also thought about was Macris. I thought Macris had a fantastic year for Fenerbahce as well.
Yeah, she did, but yeah, Wołosz is head and shoulders above even Macris in impact and just in all around setting ability. I just love watching her play. So she's my pick. How about the breakout player category? Somebody relatively new to the scene, somebody who made a really big impact this year. You pick men's or women's. Where do you want to start with that one?
I'm going to start with the men's, and I'm going to go with Alex Nikolov. I thought that Alex Nikolov was absolutely fantastic. He helped the team all the way to Game 5 of the finals, and we were questioning if we would see him at all this year because like 18, 19 years old, played 1 year at LBSU, and then comes to one of the most prestigious clubs in the world and makes an immediate impact. Like there's guys ahead of him who have been battle tested, like Botolo, like Yant, and yet they had to go with Alex Nikolov, and they needed him so much on the court that they convinced Ivan Zaitsev to pass the ball, right? And that they changed. They needed Alex Nikolov on the court so much that they changed up their entire system to really cater to his strengths, right? Now, can he figure out the passing stuff? I truly think he can.
Me
but
too.
that jump from the NCAA to being a starter in the Superliga is an absolutely massive one. And they got better once he started getting out of that rotation. But time and time again, he was putting up fantastic offensive performances. We were lucky enough to see him last year at the VNL in Ottawa. And to me, he continuously impressed me just from his attitude and his demeanor. And I know he's only going to get better from here.
Right. Yeah. Like, sure, we pointed out some of his bad performances this year, but you've got to put it in perspective. The kid is 19 and he played in the NCAA last year. And I every point you made, I love. Like, he was so valuable to Lube in his first year that they had to bend their entire lineup strategy and play style around having him be as successful as they could. And that is really, really remarkable. So I love Nikolov. I love watching him play. I think he's going to be one of the great superstars in the game over the next 10, 15, even 20 maybe years.
Sorry, just to wrap one thing up with Nikolov real quick. I love the dynamic of Matej Kaczynski and Nikolov going toe-to-toe at the end there, just because those are like two. This is like a former
passing
Bulgarian
of the
legend.
torch.
The passing of the torch. Absolutely. The only thing better would be if Sokolov was in there too.
Back in his Lube days, that would have been a fun series. All right, my breakout player on the men's side is Maxim Sapochkov. Nikolov was an easy pick, but I really thought back to the beginning of the year, like when me and Tommy Blizzard did the Superliga preview all the way back in like September, whenever that was. I was like, who is this 7'3" Russian guy in Verona's roster? Like, he's got to be like just a sort of a project practice player. Like, there's no way that they're not going to start Namori Keita on the right side, and the way we were talking about Verona all year. And then this Sapochkov guy comes out like at the very beginning of the year and is putting up like 30 points on 70% efficiency out of nowhere. And he slowed down a bit, like people figured him out, but the impact that he had, and I think he truly defines breakout player because he came out of nowhere.
nowhere.
out of nowhere to being
Didn't know who you
one of the most like explosive, impactful, and fun players to watch in club this year. And he's going to Modena next year, and I really like that move. And next year's Modena roster, I actually like a lot more than this year's, like I was saying in the Discord the other day. So Sapochkov with a huge year. I'm really curious to see if he hits the sort of sophomore slump that some players do. But honestly, I kind of feel like he may have already adjusted to that and gotten over it a little bit. I expect him to have a really good year next year. So shout outs to him. Not often do you see a guy that big come in so far under the radar and be so impressive right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think maybe that was the case where they were expecting to have Keita on the right side, and then Sapochkov came in and blew everyone away. Although that's just purely, me guessing. I do think that another person could be Nomuri Keita on that list. I know he wasn't necessarily a newcomer because he put up some fantastic points in the Korean League over the past few seasons, but let's be honest,
I think that counts. Yeah,
that I think absolutely counts. Like you're young, you're coming in from the Korean League, and I still think he was fantastic. Probably a better passer than we give him credit for.
No, he's not.
Absolutely electric offensively. So yeah, you have to give him credit. And then the chat is also saying Micah Ma'a as well.
I don't think Micah Ma'a was a breakout player. He's been good in the Plus Liga for a couple of years. He was great at Katowice last year.
I agree. Yeah.
That doesn't define a breakout player for me. But it's like guys like Sapochkov, Nikolov, and I think Keita counts. I think that absolutely would have counted as a breakout player. How about on the women's side? I certainly know that my pick is the one that everybody in the chat has been saying, and that's Anna Kristina.
And that I'm just gonna jump. Yeah. I tried. I was just going to say you can go for it because I'm just going to jump on your pick because I was racking my brain and trying to find another young player who had broken in and impacted, and there was no one even coming close to Anna Kristina.
Yeah, the only other names that came to mind for me were a couple of the younger Conegliano middles, like Marina Lubian, Federica Squarcini. Like I both thought had really good like kind of first primary years, but nowhere near the impact that Anna Kristina had on Fenerbahce. And I know she was on the team last year when she was 18, but she never played. And she ended up being so good this year at age 19 that they benched a Turkish player to bring her in Turkish competition. Like they used a foreigner slot on her across from another 19-year-old outside hitter. And Anna Kristina helped to define so much of Fenerbahce's really sort of groundbreaking play style. And again, at only age 19, I think she was the clear slam dunk pick in that category.
Yeah, without a doubt, 100%. There's no one that even comes close to how well she's doing. And if you look at someone like Dana Retke, who had such a massive impact for Molonza last year when she came in from the NCAA and kind of fizzled out since then. Like we barely saw Retke, and she's 2-3 years older than Anna Kristina, right? So Anna Kristina, unbelievable. But we also saw her do quite well at the World Championships this year. It was just a big year for Anna Kristina. But in my mind, no doubt that she was the best breakout player on the women's side.
I agree. All right. How about the best match of the year? Now, of all the matches that we talked about, tricky to narrow this down to one. I definitely have one.
I think I'm going to go with recency bias. And I'm going to say this past weekend's Champions League, mostly because I had to watch quite a bit of it at work, and it was a slow work day. So I didn't have had my phone propped up, and it was making me a bad employee for sure. Drinks were moving slowly on Saturday, absolutely, but we weren't that busy, so it was fine. It was just all the way to the wire. I outwardly groaned when Bednorth missed that shot in the fourth set.
Yeah.
And my coworker was looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? So yeah, I think just due to recency bias, I think I have to pick the final match.
Fine. Yeah, that was extremely fun. I don't know if it was the highest level match of the year. I think it was a little sloppy on both sides because of the moment. And that made it more fun. It easily would be up there for most fun match of the year for me. But for me, the best match of the year was the second leg of the Zaksa Trentino series in the Champions League quarterfinal. That one that Trentino won in 5, and then Zaksa won the golden set 15-9. That might have been the highest level match of the year. That was two heavyweight teams who ended up being among the best in the world. That, like I said, I honestly think that they're kind of similar in how good and positive and influential their clubs are, but that series that they played was just incredible. It was so good. It was such a pleasure to just kind of be a fly on the wall and watching those series. Them having played so much over the last couple of years, they played in pools, but that second leg of that match was just amazing, and that one really stuck out to me for the year.
It's really like the Trentino versus Zaksa is really becoming one of the best rivalries we have in volleyball. And I won't necessarily say it's a rivalry and I don't think they hate each other's guts.
Right. That's true.
We're not going to see each other, supporter groups going after each other, but just be based off of the magnitude of games that they've played. And I will have to say though, Zaksa is absolutely leading in that category with winning all three of the major series against these two teams in the past 3 seasons.
Yep, that is absolutely true. Last but not least, a very prestigious award. Oh, not really. That would be the Figure It Out Award of the Year, presented by Vero Volley Malonza for not being able to figure out what their team's name is, in addition to many other things. One caveat, Everett, is that Perugia is ineligible for this award because it's too obvious. I think we've already clowned on them enough, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But if you had to give a Figure It Out award for the entire season to a player, a team, a coach, whoever, who would it be?
I'm going to give it to Piacenza.
Nice.
Yeah, Piacenza was a team that on paper at the beginning of the season looked like they were going to be fantastic. And don't get me wrong, they had 2 great spells. Yes, they won the Italian Cup. Good for you. You were the first
2 good matches.
Perugia. You had 2 good matches. And then yes, you did go to go and win 3rd place, and now you're going to the Champions League. But in between, you were pitiful in the regular season, just so average.
They were bad.
And then you lost the Knack Roselaire in the semifinals of the CEV Cup. Like, just figure it out. There's no reason that Antoine Brizard and Robert Landy Simone and Leal and Lucarelli and Romano should be losing to Knack Roselaire. There's no reason that they should be losing. And what were they? They finished 5th in the regular season, right? There's no reason for that. So for their up and down, couldn't figure it out. They were fantastic sometimes, terrible others. At least they got rid of Bernardi. I'm saying Piacenza is going to be my Figure It Out of the Year award.
Prestigious award. They finished 6th. They were 11-11. Like how is that team finishing 500? That's mind-boggling with the roster that they had.
Yeah.
My Figured Out of the Year award is based on very recent news, and this is funny for a team that, if you've been following the 9x9 since its inception, we really had, or at least I had, a great time clowning on Vibo Valencia last year when they were in the Superliga. They got relegated, which I thought was very funny and very well deserved. Now they're back in the headlines because this year they played in the A2 division. They had way more budget than anybody else. They completely dominated the A2 division this year. Actually, let me look at just how good they were in the regular season. 60 points. Next closest was 48. They dominated the playoffs. They beat Bergamo in the final series 9-0 in sets. They got promoted back to the Superliga, and then promptly folded and ceased all volleyball activities. Figure it out. What are you doing to spend all your club's money to win the A2 division, and then not only can you not afford to play in the Superliga, you just cease to exist? It's one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard of in my life, for a club to, play Superliga, get relegated, get promoted back, and then just cease to exist. Fascinating. And there's no other way to say it but figure it out. To Vivo Valencia's management and whoever their sponsors are, I understand it might be a tuna company, whatever. Figure it out. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, that sucks. There's no way to put it. That just sucks, especially since, from what I understand of like the geography of Italian volleyball, the majority of the teams are up in the north.
Yep.
Whereas Vibo is like one of those few teams down in the south. I know Toronto is the other one that's more or less in the south. So I just hate seeing teams leave volleyball.
Yeah,
right? It's not something that we see in other sports. And it just sucks. But man, considering that like what 2-3 years ago they finished third or fifth in the regular season,
yeah,
or
with
fourth
the
in the regular season?
DeFalco and Shinanyeze and Rosard and whatever year that
Yeah.
was. They had a great year.
Abuba and all of
Yeah.
that, and now they're no longer even competing. It's really tough to see. It really is. It's tough to see how much volleyball is struggling still.
We've had some very good activity in the chat ever since we've started this segment, but including for the Figure It Out of the Year award. Lots of good ideas. We've got Glenn Hogue, Chemik Police, Skrab Elchatov, all the old Italian players who now coach. There's Ferhat Akbash we talked about earlier. There's a lot of very funny picks in the chat for Figure It Out of the Year. But yeah, I wanted to give it to Vibo Valencia. Like that is a Figure It Out of epic proportions.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, you've got a couple other. You added a couple other like sort of season-ending questions into our show notes, Doc Everett. That I really liked. I really like these before we kind of wrap up the show. Let's dig into it.
First and foremost, which undefeated team in the regular season was more disappointing, Perugia or Eczacibasi?
Oh man, 22-0 Perugia, 26-0 Eczacibasi. But like, now this is hard because they're both tremendously disappointing. I think when you talk about disappointment, it comes down to expectations. I think this Eczacibasi team, they had Tijana Bošković coming off of a world championship MVP, but the rest of their roster wasn't even close to as dominant on paper as Perugia's. I think the way that Perugia's team should have been to only win 2 trophies out of the 5, even though Eczacibasi won 0 trophies out of the 4. Like 0 to go 26-0 and win 0 trophies, that's really bad. But their middles were kind of forgettable. Sinead Jack, Laura Hireman off the bench, like Voronkova and Baladin on the outsides, kind of forgettable. Perugia's team, top to bottom, was completely stacked at every single position. And not only did they fail to win any trophies, they lost to their 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs, which is so bad. So yeah. I think that Perugia has to be more disappointing, even though they did win 2 trophies this year.
Yeah, it was like at least Perugia won trophies, but Eczacibasi made it to the league finals and made it to the Champions League finals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And lost there to 2 very, very good teams. Whereas Perugia, as we talked about it,
lost to the 8th seed.
Lost to the 8th seed, right? So yeah. Well, sorry, excuse me. Thank you. I would have to go with Perugia as well. Like that to me is just disappointing. And to be honest though, like, whenever I watch Eczacibasi, like even in the Super League game, I was just never fully impressed.
Same here.
I never was like, this team blows me away. Whereas like we would not talk about Perugia just because of how dominant they were. And then all we could do was talk about Perugia because of how terrible they were. So yeah, I 100% think that Perugia has to be more disappointing. All right.
I've had so much fun making fun of Perugia this year, man. I'm almost sad to see it go.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's still some things that we can talk about with them. I think we need to wrap up this season a little bit with them and look forward because oh man, it's tough to look. Was bringing Egonu to VakifBank worth it? If you're a VakifBank fan, if you're on that part of that team, was it worth it?
So for 1 year, what were they paying her? Like €1.5 million for that 1 year, so something off the charts like that. Was it worth it? Honestly, I kind of think that it was. Is it weird to say that? And maybe I'm completely blinded by the performance that she just put up over the weekend in the Champions League final, but like that match alone and like the €500,000 check that club received for winning that event because of Egonu's brilliance, I think I kind of think that it was worth it. And we do know that Egonu is on the move once again. It sounds like she'll be going to Malonza of all places, which is ridiculous. But VakifBank won 2 trophies only. I know that they lost in the semis of the Sutnar Ligi. They lost in the final of the Club World Championship, but you brought in one of the best players in the world. You got the best performance maybe we've ever seen in the biggest match of the year. I kind of feel like that was worth it.
I'm going to say it wasn't.
Okay.
I'm going to say it wasn't because if you just kept the team as it was last year and you bring back Bella Hawk, you can run it back. And
Yeah,
I think you could run it back and go to the Infinity Gauntlet once again, right? And it seemed to me like, yes, it did work out in the end, and that's fantastic, but there was a lot of downs. Like there was a lot of up and downs throughout the season. And quite often Egonu was at the heart of it all. So yeah, I think for me, I like seeing teams that like it made no sense to me last year when VakifBank won it all, won the Champions League, won the World Club Championships, and they turn around and basically go like indirectly tell their best player in Isabel Hawk, hey, you haven't been good enough for the past few years. Yes, you won the best player of the World Club Championships, but we're going to go get the person we've been beating. And you know, it just kind of like makes me think like what was left on the table for VakifBank had they kept Bella Hawk and ran it back with that entire team from last year.
Great question, and we'll never know. But that is a very strong point, and a great question with not really a clear answer.
Yeah, I guess not. And then the other one that I had brought up, we already kind of talked about it. Would you rather be JSW or Zaksa?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. That I'll take winning the 3 Champions Leagues. I'll take that to my grave.
Yeah, absolutely. I would fully agree. Bob, do you have any other questions to wrap up the year?
Not really. I mean, we have such a quick turnaround to the national team season that we can't really even spend that much time digesting all of this because of how late the Champions League final is and how soon that VNL starts. So we kind of got to shift our attention here pretty darn quickly. And it is crazy that we have Volleyball Nations League matches 1 week from today. Like that is wild. I think there are 4 women's games a week from today, Tuesday, May 30th. That's nuts. Like I feel like I would, obviously the players certainly deserve an off season, but even I kind of want an off season just to reset my brain to think about a different style of volleyball for more than just a week.
Yeah, next week we can watch international women's volleyball again. We will be in Japan and Turkey, so those Japanese matches might be a little bit hard to watch unless you're down to stay up really, really late or get up super early. Germany versus the Dutch at 3:10. This is all Eastern time, by the way. Japan versus Dominican Republic at 6:40. Italy versus Thailand at 10 a.m. So that I think that one should be a decent
That's
one.
doable. Yeah.
And Poland versus Canada. Let's go at 1 p.m. Eastern time.
Man, it's nuts. We just had the Champions League final, and on next week's show, we will literally be talking about VNL matches that already happened. Yeah, the Maple Volleys on the women's side getting underway. Yeah, 1 p.m. a week from today. I'm stoked about that. I'm also stoked because we have. Well, let me tell you, we've got some things planned over here on Volleyball Source. We've got Everett and I will do a couple things together. We'll do a couple things separately to get you all like everything you need to know for. I'll be doing some previews for the USA men and women. Everett will be doing them for the Canadian men and women. We'll be doing some for kind of VNL and national team season as a whole. There's a lot going on. There'll be a lot of coverage here in Volleyball Source the next couple weeks. And Everett, I think it's like like 2 weeks from today will be Nations League in Ottawa for the men, and we're going to be there. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy. That is pretty nuts. I can't wait.
Can't wait.
both love and hate Volleyball Nations League. I've talked about it before. We don't need to get into it right now.
We've got a point in the chat that I love. This Saturday, Turkey
Yeah.
versus Denmark, and this particular fan says that Turkey will beat Denmark this time. Not so fast. We saw what happened last year, but one of Everett's all-time great chirps might expire depending on the results of that match.
Oh, you guys just got 3-donged by a team who lost to Denmark.
Yeah, instant 9x9 Hall of Fame material with that one. And that's another thing that I love about national team season is that, like, since, I mean, you're Canadian, I'm American, we don't have a club team that we're diehard fans
No.
of. We have national teams that we are diehard fans of, and we will not shy away from that fandom on this show this summer, and I'm very excited about that part of it.
Rob, in the chat right now, we've got people talking about the Iran visa issues.
Okay, I was just barely reading about that in the Discord today. I don't know enough to talk about it right now. We will talk about it on next week's show, or whenever we preview the men's VNL. I will make sure that I am well enough educated to talk about it, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. I just don't know enough, and it's definitely a touchy subject.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it either. I'm assuming it's about Iran gaining access to the United States.
Yeah, it's about getting travel visas to the United States for a couple players in particular, but I'm not going to touch that one right now. You guys got to stay tuned for that. But I think that's about it for club season. Everett, it's nuts. Join the Discord for sure. We're going to be popping off as we sort of shift our attention to Nations League next week, and we'll be back next Tuesday, same time for the 9x9, but there will probably be a decent amount more YouTube coverage and videos and streams here on the channel previewing national team season before it starts. So you're in the right place.
Luke coming in with a good figured out of the year award goes to Sato Kruzua and Wallace for potentially ruining the Brazilian Volleyball Federation.
Yeah, it was a good one. That's a big old figure it out.
that is definitely a big figured out. All right, as we wrap up this show, let us know some topics that you guys want us to discuss.
Yeah, please comment
about national team season. We'll be sure to do some stuff. Maybe we can do some stuff outside of the scope of the 9x9. Also, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe over to Volleyball Source. We're going to be doing so much more content now that national team season is here. I'm going to be at the Canada versus Brazil matches right before VNL. So if you want some sick baseline highlights, you know where to come. And join the Discord. Come with us on the Discord. We're always available there. And Rob, anything else from you to wrap this up?
Don't forget about Where's Daddy. Find Daddy Stankovic, comment the timestamp of where he's at as soon as the stream is over. So any second now, I wonder if anybody has already found him and is waiting to be the first one to comment. So don't forget about that. But stay tuned to the Volleyball Source Network. We've got some good stuff coming, as it is our favorite season in volleyball. It's time for national team season, boys and girls. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
That is the end of year 2 of professional volleyball in the 9x9.
That's right.
That's two professional seasons we've done. That's crazy.
2 in the books. That will do it as well for episode 69, the nicest episode in show history.
Let's go.
See you, people. Thanks for watching.